Hi friends, I'm glad to be back with you this week. We are continuing our study of different women's artists during Women's History Month. And this week we're going to learn about an artist named Sonia Delaunay. Now Sonia Delaunay was born in 1885, back in a country that belonged to the former Soviet Union. I'm going to show you pictures of what she looked like. And as I do, I want you to imagine what her art might have looked like. Take a look at Ms. Delaunay with me. Here is Sonia Delaunay. Notice the pictures are in black and white, so they were taken a long time ago before color film. She's dressed differently than we dress today. What do you think her art looked like? I wish I could be with you when you were guessing. Did you say out loud what you thought her paintings might look like? Did you say maybe they looked like flowers or gardens or ladies in big poofy dresses? It's kind of what you'd think, wouldn't you, if you saw those pictures of her? I think you're going to be surprised when you see the art that Sonia Delaunay created. Let's take a look at some of her work. Was that what you expected? It wasn't what I expected either. Sonia Delaunay was a pioneer in the art world. That means that she did something that other artists had not done before. She created artwork using bright, bold colors and geometric shapes, almost like pieces of a quilt sewn together, but she did it with paint. And so today, we're going to create a piece that looks a lot like her work. We're going to use bright colors and geometric shapes. Here is mine. I could hold it this way, or this way, or this way, or this way. Kind of probably just depends on my mood. We're going to create something like this together. One thing I love about this piece is that everybody's is going to be really, really different. And to create this, all we need are some circles and some lines. Now you'll notice I have all sorts of different sized circles on my art piece today. I have this great big circle, then I have some medium-sized circles, some smaller circles, and even some smaller circles. And you want to know how I got those? With dishes. I used a plate to trace my great big circle. I used a bowl to trace some of my medium circles. I used a cup to trace some of my smaller circles. And then I flipped my cup over and used, see how this side is a little bit smaller than this side, to trace some of the smaller circles inside. So we're going to trace a bunch of round things. So plates, bowls, dishes, you might use a yogurt container, you might use a plastic lid, you might use a cup or a glass. Just make sure that you ask grown-up in your house. And then we're also going to use a ruler to draw our straight lines. So we're going to do all of that in pencil first. Then we're going to trace it in Sharpie, and there's some tricks to doing the tracing. And then we're going to paint all these that's not even a word, vibrant colors in watercolors. So go get your paper, get some round things to trace, and grab your watercolors, your paintbrush, and a pencil and a ruler. And I'll see you back here to create together. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we get to do is just have fun. We're just going to trace a bunch of circles using whatever it is that you have at home. I'm gonna start by doing my big circle first. I'm gonna flip my plate over, and you can put it anywhere you want on your paper. It doesn't have to be in the middle. It can be hanging off the edge. I think I'm gonna have mine hanging off the edge of my paper a little bit. I'm gonna hold it down with my helping hand and with my pencil. I'm gonna just trace around it. And you can decide if you wanna do 1, 2, however many you want. I think on this one, I'm going to do 2 big circles. On my other one, I just did 1 big circle. Now notice, my circles are overlapping, and that makes that cool ellipse shape that happens between them. See how that happens here in lots of different places? Notice in this piece, all of the different shapes that happen when circles overlap. So we're going to do quite a bit of overlapping. After I do my big ones, I'm going to take my bowl and I'm going to trace it. Now notice, see how I hold my bowl with one hand and then I pick up my pencil? I'm going to do this one right in the middle of that other one. Now watch, I'm going to go around a little bit, but then I think I'm going to come over here. You don't have to have your hand go all the way around in one big motion. I think that's all I want for that size. Then I think I'm going to do just a few. You don't want to do a million circles because then you'd have so many little pieces to color in. So I'm going to do, let's see, we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do maybe 1 or 2 more. So I'm going to do 1 more down here. Then I think I'm going to do a little, see how I flipped my cup over? And I'm going to do a little one. This one I find a little bit harder to trace because I can't see my pencil quite as well. So if I don't make a perfect circle, it's okay. See, that's not perfect, and that's okay. We'll go back and trace over that with Sharpie. Okay, so I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 circles. I think that's probably good. Now I'm going to do at least 3 lines, and you can put them anywhere you want. The only thing you want to make sure with your lines is that you want to make sure that no line is sticking out by himself. So you want your line to have a stopping place. So this line doesn't go all the way across the paper, but it's stopped at that spot right there. And this line just divided that circle in half. Like this line just divided that circle in half. What I don't want is a line that comes out here and then just stops out in the middle of space somewhere. So this line started off the page and went all the way across. This line started off the page and went all the way across. And then these little lines stopped at other lines. So I'm going to do 1 line there. So that gives me 1 line. I'm going to do another big one. I don't know, let's see, let's do this guy right here. It's kind of fun to do them at an angle. And then I think I'm going to divide some of my circles into sections. So I'm going to do a line from the edge of this circle. I think I'll do it all the way off the edge of the page. So I'm going to do there, all the way off to the edge. And then I think I'm going to do one, let's see. You can just play around, but I'm going to do one inside of this circle. There. I think I'm done drawing with pencil. Now comes the fun part. Now I'm going to trace all of these shapes with my Sharpie. And you know what? As I'm looking at this, sometimes artists do this. We look at our work and we go, something's missing. This little guy seems alone to me. So I'm going to trace another circle around him. And that's just because I want to. I don't have to, but I just think it would look better. So you might look at yours and think, that looks kind of lonely. He needs a friend. Oh yes, that makes me much happier. Okay, so now I'm going to trace, and our tracing isn't going to be perfect. You can choose to use your ruler if you want and hold it back along your lines and trace your lines with your Sharpie like that. That's an easy way to get some straight lines just on your straight line parts. But we can't really do that with our cups because I don't want you to get Sharpie on your mom's nice cups. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trace mine in sections. I'm gonna pull my Sharpie towards me, I'm gonna turn my paper, and I'm gonna keep pulling my Sharpie toward me as I trace around my circles. Now you could try to just trace right on the line, but that's really hard for me. I always like to be pulling a pen towards me when I'm tracing. So I'll start away from me and I'll pull towards myself and I'll probably stop there at that line. I'm gonna turn my paper a little bit more and I'm gonna keep going until I feel comfortable. Then I'm gonna turn it a little bit more again. And this part takes a little bit, but it sure makes a difference in the end to have those nice bold lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep tracing my black lines and you get to trace yours. You might need to catch up and draw some more circles or some more lines, but let's just hang out together and get it ready for paint. Now we get to start painting our piece. And I just want to show you a little bit of the original one. Wait, that's not the, yeah, that is. That's the original one that I did. I want you to notice something here. I started, when I painted this, I started with my favorite color. My favorite color is red. And I painted red, not in just one spot, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So once I had red on my brush, I painted in 5 different places across the painting. Then I moved to another color. Maybe I moved to yellow or green. Let's say I did green. I painted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different places in green. So when you start to paint this, you're going to paint each section a different color. But instead of changing out our paint every single section, we're going to paint at least 5 sections in the same color. So for example, let's say that I'm going to paint this one red. I'm going to choose 4 or 5. Ooh, you might hear the thunder outside. It's thundering while I'm painting this afternoon. Now what I don't want to do is I don't want to paint red next to red. I don't want my reds to share a line, and I don't want to paint red next to red here. I could share points. I could go across that little point and put red there, but I want the red to travel around the painting so that I'm putting it in different sections of the painting all over the place. So you're going to choose a color and paint it in 4 or 5 different places, maybe even 6 or 7 different places around your painting. And notice, as I'm painting, I like to paint the outline first and then fill it in. Remember not to get your brush looking like this. If it looks like that, then we've used our brush too hard and we need to go back and rinse it out. Smooth it out, get a little bit more paint, and paint it like that. After I choose that first color, let's see if I get about 5 areas painted red there, then I'm going to choose another color. I'm going to do green next. And it's okay for this color to share a side with the red. Now sometimes if you share a side with a paint that you just put on, sometimes the paint will bleed in or travel over to where it's wet. But I would choose 5 or more spots to paint this green. So I'm going to keep painting mine. I'm going to paint red and green, and then I'm going to move on to all sorts of different colors. But each time I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to choose a color and I'm going to pick at least 5 different places around my painting to put that color. Remember a second ago when I talked about 2 shapes sharing a point but not a line? We could do that right here. So we could do green here, and then we could go across from the green right there. Now you're gonna notice, if you're paying super crazy close attention, that this drawing isn't exactly the same as the one that I did before, and it's not totally gonna match the video in the next segment, because when I was putting my video together today, this whole section disappeared. So I had to redraw and repaint. So just in case you see that, no need to be confused. Sometimes mistakes happen in art, and sometimes they happen in making videos. You will notice how my red is kind of weak here and looks more like pink. I'm gonna leave it like that, because if I add more paint on top of that, it's just gonna get soupy and wet and messy. But later on, I'm gonna go back and add a little bit more red paint on top of that to make it a little bit darker. So I'm gonna keep painting, and I want you to join me adding color all over your piece of art. Okay, I think I like where mine is going, or how it's almost done. Now you notice, like, I made a little mistake there. My paint kind of bled from one into the other. I don't care. That's part of art, is seeing what happens. So I might go back over that with a little bit of orange. Now that it's dry, and blend it in a little bit. You can go back and do that when things are dry. My reds, remember how I talked to you about how the reds kind of were dry and pink and I want them a little bit darker? Well, now that they're dry, I can go back if I want and put another layer on top and make my reds darker. You could even go back and do a whole different color. I'll show you in just a sec. Let me get the red back on here. So that red is nice and dark. I might come back and make some of my other reds a little bit darker too. But you could come back and let's say while you're painting that you accidentally paint too yellow right there. And you go, oh shoot, I didn't mean to paint too yellow right next to each other. What can I do? Well, we know a little bit about paint. And look, this is already doing it for us. What if I put some blue on top of that yellow? What happens? It turns green. Now, some of that is bleeding into there, and that happens too. What I would do there, and I don't think I have one with me, but if you have a piece of Kleenex or a piece of toilet paper even, I'm going to use my art apron. You can soak that up and make it go away. Just dab, dab, dab. And then I can come back and put a little bit of yellow, but I don't want it to be very wet. Watercolor paint moves where there's water. There. So I think I'm happy with how that turned out. I like these two little white places. I think they just look kind of bright and happy. And I might come back and add some more layers of paint later, but I think I'm happy with that just as it is. And look, I used the same tools for both paintings. And they both look very, very different, don't they? Same tools, same supplies, two totally different pieces of artwork. Well, I had fun tracing my plates and my bowls and my cups and making two very, here I am, unique pieces of artwork. I hope you had fun too. Do you remember what we call art that isn't representative of something specific? So when we paint outside, when we paint something that looks like the outside, we call it a landscape. When we paint something on a table in front of us, we call it a still life. When we paint a face, we call it a portrait. But when we paint something like this, we call it an abstract. So today, you painted an abstract piece of art in the style of Sonia Delaunay. Maybe it was unexpected for you in the same way that seeing the picture of Miss Delaunay and seeing her art was unexpected. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us. Sometimes we might look at somebody or something and make assumptions about them that aren't true. But when we get to know them, we discover that there are marvelous and fascinating things about that person. I know that there are marvelous and fascinating things about you, and I sure love drawing together with you even when we're apart.